They say that war has a god. They say his rage is unquenchable, his fury scorching all it touches. They say he embodies the unrestrained chaos of battle itself. Ares is that god, the unrestrained fury of battle embodied. And now we journey into his story, a tale of desire, betrayal, and boundless wrath. By the end, you may find yourself wondering not if you understand him, but if you could ever bear the weight of a fury like his. From the moment Ares opened his eyes, his destiny was marked by turmoil. Born to Zeus, the king of gods, and Hera, the queen, he was a son born into privilege, yet destined to face scorn. Even as an infant, the other gods felt a chill in his presence, a quiet storm lurking beneath his innocent gaze. Zeus himself sensed it early on, a power that yearned to be unleashed, a spirit that thrived on conflict. Zeus, wise and calculating, saw in his son not strength but danger, a spark of raw, untamed chaos. Ares grew up shadowed by his father's expectations and disappointment. While Zeus valued strategy and control, Ares was instinctual, passionate. Though his mother Hera took pride in her son, even she found him difficult to rein in. The halls of Olympus admired intellect, wisdom, and beauty. Ares was different. The art of war was his calling, and to him every swing of the sword, every clash of shields was a dance, a symphony. Yet in the halls of the gods, he remained the outsider, feared but never understood. Isolated and treated as a necessary weapon rather than a cherished son, Ares learned to find strength in solitude, and so he walked alone, a god who found more kinship with the mortal soldiers who fought and died in his name than with his immortal kin. The mortals at least understood his heart. They too knew the brutality of war, the sacrifices made for honor and glory. But Olympus? Olympus was a realm of ideals, of restraint, of pride and intellect. Even his own sister Athena, goddess of wisdom and war strategy, saw him as a brute, a creature of base impulses. They were two sides of the same coin, yet opposites in every way. Athena approached war as a complex game, each move calculated, each strike precise. And Ares fought from the heart, driven by instinct, his every battle a visceral testament to raw power. Years later, a chance to prove his might arose during the Trojan War. When Helen was stolen away to Troy, a feud erupted, igniting a conflict that would span a decade and divide gods and mortals alike. Ares, drawn to the heat of battle, chose the Trojan side, swayed by Aphrodite, who favored Paris, the man who had dared to claim Helen. For Ares, this war was not just a mortal conflict. It was a stage upon which he could unleash his power fully, a place where he could fight without restraint. In the midst of the fighting, Ares stood beside Hector, Troy's greatest warrior, guiding his spear and stirring the hearts of Trojan soldiers, urging them to press forward against the Greeks. Like a storm on the battlefield, Ares rallied the troops, lending them strength as the blood of heroes spilled onto the earth. With his goddess Enyo, the personification of battle and bloodshed by his side, Ares' presence brought a wave of fear and frenzy that emboldened the Trojans but struck terror into their enemies. The battlefield became a chessboard of divine interventions, with gods aiding their chosen sides. Athena, ever the strategist, sided with the Greeks. In one fierce clash, Ares confronted Athena directly. His rage was boundless, his strength unmatched, or so he believed. Athena, wielding her wisdom and strategy, deflected his furious attacks. Seizing a moment of his overconfidence, she struck him with a massive boulder, sending Ares crashing to the ground. At the height of the chaos, the Greek hero Diomedes, blessed with Athena's strength, saw his chance. Guided by the goddess, he struck Ares with his spear. The wound unleashed a scream from Ares so terrifying it was said to echo with the voices of 10,000 men. Defeated and humiliated, the god of war fled the battlefield, retreating to Olympus to nurse his wound. But when he arrived, Zeus met him with cold indifference, dismissing his complaints. "Of all the gods," Zeus remarked, "you are the most hateful. Conflict follows you like a shadow, and your presence brings nothing but strife." The words cut deep, more painful than the wound itself, a brutal reminder of his place among the gods. Zeus had long been frustrated with Ares's uncontrollable rage, seeing it as a threat to divine order, a stark contrast to the disciplined might Zeus valued. The sting of Zeus's disdain deepened Ares's isolation. Watching Athena receive praise for her strategic brilliance while he was scorned for his raw power ignited a bitter flame within him. No matter how fiercely he fought, he remained the outcast, the god necessary for war, but never celebrated. Their rivalry was a silent battle he could never win, a constant reminder that wisdom was cherished over strength, strategy over instinct. Perhaps it was this bitterness, this resentment, that drove him to the one place where he was worshipped, the battlefield. In the clash of weapons, in the cries of the wounded, amidst the blood-soaked earth, he found solace. Mortals may not have understood his heart, but they knew his power. They invoked his name in moments of desperation, begging for strength, for victory. And for Ares, that was enough. If he could not earn respect from the gods, he would take it from mortals, even if it was born of fear. But Ares was not always alone in battle. When he strode into war, he was a tempest, and with him came his blood-soaked kin. Phobos and Deimos, his sons, personifications of fear and terror, stood by his side, spreading panic and dread like wildfire across the battlefield. His sister Eris, the goddess of discord, sowed strife with every step, turning ally against ally. Enyo, his companion in bloodlust, reveled in the carnage, her laughter mingling with the cries of the fallen. They were a fearsome entourage, a war god's royal family. Together, they descended upon battlefields like a dark storm. But fear had its cost. Then came a day when that price struck close to home. When his own daughter, Alcippe, was attacked by Halirotheus, the son of Poseidon, Ares was consumed by a rage like none he had known. Halirotheus had attempted to violate Alcippe, a heinous act even among mortals, let alone the divine. In a blinding fury, Ares struck down Halirotheus without mercy, defending his daughter's honor in an instant of unstoppable vengeance. Yet in taking justice into his own hands, he broke an unspoken code among the gods. They did not simply kill each other without consequence, and so for his actions, Ares was summoned to stand trial. The gods gathered at the Areopagus, a great rock in Athens, which would become a place of judgment for ages to come. This was the first trial for murder among the gods, setting a precedent for divine justice. Here, he stood alone, a god of war on trial before his own kin, facing the judgment of those who saw him as little more than a force of chaos. Poseidon himself, Halirotheus's father, demanded retribution, his voice echoing with the rage of the ocean. Zeus looked upon Ares with that same cold, calculating gaze he'd worn since Ares was a child, a gaze that stripped away pride and dignity, leaving only the accusation. But Ares, though fierce and wrathful, was not a mindless god. For the first time he was not the god of war nor the fierce son of Zeus, but a father. And with a quiet, unyielding strength, he defended himself, speaking not as an Olympian, but as a parent. "I avenged her honor," he shouted. "Would any god here do less for their blood? Would you, Poseidon?" His voice rang out over the silent gathering, and for a moment even the waves seemed to hold their breath. The gods murmured among themselves, uncertain. Zeus's brow furrowed, and the atmosphere grew tense. For Ares' words, though fierce, struck at the heart of a god's duty to protect his own. Many gods felt that instinct, that primal urge to defend their kin. And yet, justice among the gods was not like justice among mortals. Divine actions carried divine consequences. Poseidon, unmoved, seethed, his desire for vengeance burning hotter than Ares' plea for mercy. The judgment finally came, and Ares was acquitted, but the trial left its mark. From that day forward, the Areopagus became a place of judgment, a symbol of divine justice and wrath, bearing the name of the god who had been judged there. But for Ares, it was a reminder that he would always stand alone, that even his acts of love and loyalty would be met with scorn and suspicion. He left the Areopagus not as a forgiven god, but as one marked by the weight of judgment. His heart was not entirely hardened, for even Ares, the god of war, knew love, and it was Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, who captured it. She was his opposite in every way, soft where he was hard, delicate where he was rough, serene where he was tempestuous. Yet in her presence he found a peace he had never known. Their affair was passionate, forbidden, and reckless, much like the god himself. They stole moments together, slipping away from Olympus's prying eyes. But secrets among gods are seldom kept. Helios, the all-seeing sun god, witnessed their clandestine meetings. Unable to resist, he whispered the scandal to Hephaestus, Aphrodite's husband and the master blacksmith of Olympus. Consumed by hurt and rage, Hephaestus devised a plan for retribution. He forged an unbreakable net, so fine it was nearly invisible, yet stronger than any chain. Then, one night, as Ares lay entwined with his lover, the net descended, binding them both in a helpless embrace. Hephaestus burst into the chamber, his face a mask of scorn. He summoned the other gods, and soon Zeus, Athena, Hermes, all those who had looked upon Ares with disdain, gathered to witness his humiliation. Laughter and mocking words filled the air as Ares stood bound, his pride shattered. In that moment, he felt the sting of his own vulnerability. The gods jeered, their scorn cutting deeper than any weapon. Aphrodite turned away, her eyes filled with shame. For Ares it was a betrayal on all sides, a confirmation that he was truly alone among the immortals. From that humiliating day onward, he would no longer seek the gods' approval. If they wanted a god of rage, he would be that god. If they wanted a bringer of chaos, he would unleash a storm they could never control. The laughter of the gods echoed in his mind, hardening his heart. The vulnerability he had shown was met with ridicule, not empathy. He embraced his role not as a celebrated hero, but as the necessary darkness, the embodiment of war's true nature. For Ares, it was no longer about honor or respect. It was about survival, about proving he was a god in his own right. Even the god of war, though, could not escape sorrow. Amidst the prolonged conflict of the Trojan War, Ares found himself watching his son, Ascalaphus, a brave warrior, fighting in his name. Ascalaphus, a valiant leader among the Greeks, fought fiercely against the Trojans. He was one of the leaders from Ormenion, commanding his men with courage and honor. But war spared no one, not even the children of gods. In a brutal exchange, Ascalaphus was slain by Deiphobus, a Trojan prince and brother of Hector. When Ascalaphus fell, Ares felt a pain that cut deeper than any wound. For the first time, he felt not just the loss of a soldier, but the loss of his own blood. In his grief, Ares confronted Zeus, demanding justice, vengeance. "Father, you who control the fates of gods and men alike, why must you take from me the one thing I cherish?" But Zeus, unmoved, dismissed him. "Do not blame me for the whims of fate," Zeus replied. Mortals live and die by their own choices, even those born of gods. Interfering further would disrupt the balance we have sworn to uphold. For the king of gods, mortals were fleeting, even the children of gods but pawns in a grand design. And so, Ares left Olympus, his heart as broken as the mortals he had watched for centuries. In solitude, Ares contemplated his existence. He recognized that while others might shun him, the world could not deny the shadow he cast, a shadow born of their own hearts. Shaped by scorn, betrayal and loss, Ares embraced his role, not as a celebrated hero, but as the necessary darkness, the embodiment of war's true nature. In the end, Ares became the god he was always meant to be, a symbol of humanity's darkest instincts, a force of untamed fury. He was not honored, not cherished, but he was necessary. For in every battle, in every act of violence, there was a sliver of Ares. He was the blood in their veins, the fire in their souls, the relentless force that drove them to fight, to conquer, to survive. And perhaps that is the greatest irony of Ares' existence. For all his power, for all his might, he remained alone, forever bound to a world that both revered and rejected him. He was the god of war, the god of unending rage. But beneath it all, he was a god searching for something he could never find, a place to belong. And so, he fights on, not for victory, not for glory, but because it is all he has ever known.